welcome back to Chamber Chats. My name is Olivia Stone, and today we are here with Tracy Jomek of Sloyd Croft, which is an American Sloyd school here in Rio Medina. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, what is Sloyd?
Sloyd is a type of work. It comes from, it's probably started back in the 1500s, came to the US in 1800s. It's a way of working. So a lot of people think Sloyd is, you'll see it as a handcraft and working, but when you do Sloyd, educational Sloyd, it's working with 12 habits, and the habits are really the goal. It's not to be a great woodworker or to be a great, you're not going to be a carpenter or boat builder. It's the habits of attentiveness, the focus, the mindfulness, the order and exactness to make you work through. So it's not the product, it's the process of working with the child so that they're able to work, whether have the work ethic that's required for college, that's required for the military, that's required for a trade or seminary. So Sloyd tends to be a method of working, again, with your hands. Usually woodworking is the number one choice, but again, the focus is not vocational, it's on the child.
Right. And so, what year was Sloyd Croft established?
2020, this full program for all ages. Prior to that, we had been teaching boat building, wooden boat building skills with hand tools for a couple of years before that. And then after COVID, had taken a break. Kids needed, again, to get out and get physical, and we have an 8-acre property, so it was a really easy way. The woodworking, they were lumberjacking down the driveway, just in different workspaces, so it was just a really easy conversion, and so then just building up the staff to accommodate.
So what inspired you to create Sloyd Croft?
Well, I started education right in my 20s. I was active duty Navy nurse and worked with some corpsmen. My job was education and training for my staff. And what I found is a lot of them were way smarter than me. They just never had either the access to college or the focus, the discipline to learn and work through. So I started working there, and then kind of cultivating that no, anything's possible. It's that you just have to have the skills and that drive, and to be resilient to bounce back from the falls, and when you run into something, work the other way. The goal was to actually give them those hands-on experiences that you still see around the world a little bit more. Ours has gone really a lot of the intellectual, which the left brain, and these are right brains kids. So the innovation, these kids tend to be much more willing to, they're the ones that are dabbling. They're just curious and want to try. Right. And so, but they also want real world experience. So it's the exercise of doing something, there's no value. So usually what their work is, usually their community service they'll build for the church. They'll go and we partner with Paradise Canyon for some work, but there's always a real world output, not just an exercise. The exercise is to prepare so that they can do something. So,
what ages can come to the school?
Well, our core age group is 10 to 15.
Okay.
That's our starter. We work with all ages, actually. We work from 25 all the way down to 5-year-olds. The core group is 10 to 15. We have a 5-day program that's full of school, academics, lots of one-on-one tutoring, and then we also have a 2-day home study, 2 or 3-day home study option for parents who are either doing online with their local district, or they were doing homeschooling, or just kind of a blend. So that's our core group. But again, like that real world output, that group, we offer a monthly Sloyder class that's for 5 to 9-year-olds. And so that class designs, or my 10 to 15-year-olds designs the class for the 5 to 9-year-olds. So they set up the workspace, they teach the safety, so it's a good way for them to internalize it.
Right.
And so they'll set up different stations, and they have to still maintain their own work, so they have shifts, and they'll come in for 20 minutes is how long before they'll switch. So each of the age groups work with them. So they spend the month preparing for the Sloyders, learning that empathy and how to be patient. And it kind of shows them where they've made growth, because they're like, they didn't hold that saw right, or they didn't, but they can see something.
Right.
The other age, when you go from, we have 16 to 25, and that age group again comes back to that military age group, are people that we have, they're still trying to figure out what they want to do. They may got on the a vocational track that they didn't really want to be on, or an education that was a little bit more liberal arts that they really don't know how to handle, or they've given up interest that they've that they really had a passion for, but they don't have either the space, the time, the resources to build on that. So, for instance, we have one who was, gosh, she was 22, college graduate, whatnot, and he set up our bees, real passion for bees, but no space to do it. So we partnered with him. He set up the bee hives for us. So we started that about 2 years ago. So he comes and works with the kids once a week, built the beehives. We partnered and helped him do that so that he could kind of, and now he, I guess, he started his own business where he actually goes and sets up hives. So it's kind of finding your passion, I think, where we are. We have our swim instructor for the summer, Matthew. He wants to be a professional swimmer. So he, again, that's his passion. And that's what we want as instructors, to see that what your passion is, that's what you can do. So he comes once a week and he does swim lessons. And so he's out there for 2.5 hours and we just cycle. And the kids come, they'll work on something, and then they'll go swim for a bit. All our instructors all have either a trade or craft that they're really good at. They also have advanced education in different formats. We have Waldorf school instructor, we have a forest school instructor. We have one that's traditional education from Texas State, and she does a lot of our tracking and our direct instruction with our math and English. But again, we're looking for people that are really passionate about what they do, also passionate about what's going to happen to the next generation.
Right.
They're grounded in their. We are a faith-based school. We don't necessarily teach religion. We say prayer at lunch, but the premise is still there. So they're grounded in their faith. And the other thing is that they have to, in addition to working here, they have to have an outlet so that they stay relevant to what's going on in the world. So coming and just teaching woodworking, they still need to be working. Like most of them, they all make materials and sell their own wares and whatnot, so they do both.
Right.
So that they can keep that connection, and their connections also help the students. So they come in every morning, they take care of their animals, they do their morning chores, they set up for the day, they do 2 meals, so they do different meal preps, whoever partners in with the kitchen, and do the serving, they do the cleanup. They work throughout the day. They do their shop time. They do their education, like the academics. They don't have a class though, because it's one-on-one. They'll work and they'll have, the instructor is usually in here, and they need to figure out their day, so they're scheduling. So they have a list that I need to knock these things out, and they have to find the instructor to help them do that. So they'll either find the art instructor who does the handwriting. We use fountain pens just to get that control and that flow. So again, kind of an old world. We have the old world printer, but then we'll match it up with the CNC so that you have the old and can kind of see how the technologies have progressed, and again, to innovate something with the old and something new to come up with something timeless. Yeah.
So is it year round?
We run from September through July. We're closed in August.
Okay.
But yeah, it's year round. And again, in the summer, we'll pull in different programs. Like we had a drum circle and some things that you would normally find at a summer camp, swim lessons and things. So the schedule changes a little bit for the summer, but it runs year round. They have a generous 3-week vacation for Christmas, and they have 2 weeks for Easter, and but it's 39 weeks a year. And so it's just a steady state.
Wow. So what are the 12 habits?
To cultivate good habits for yourself, for your relationships, for your work, and for the environment. And there's 3 in each one. So order and exactness. So one of the major things about Sloyd is we never touch the child's work. So they do their own work, and we have a model, and they replicate the model. So the evaluation in that regards is when they feel it's suitable, that they can move on. And they tend to be a lot more critical than any kind of grade. So we don't want to, this is the grade and here you hit the bar. The bar needs to be internal. And so to get rid of the, it needs to be internal motivation, not external. Not to reach the carrot, the goal post or whatever. Right. And so they work through the model, and they'll go through and they'll feel it and they'll touch it. And that's that's why Sloyd is such a good thing, because it's self-correcting, because they can tell if it's not smooth enough, if it's not soft enough, it's crooked, and they'll go back. When they had enough of it, they'll set that piece aside and they'll move on to the next piece. when they move on to the next piece, they'll work on that. But then they'll come back and they'll look at old work and they're like, what was I thinking? You know?
Right, right.
And then they'll go revisit it. But it's kind of let them breathe in and breathe out as they go through. So order and exactness. Rather than us giving them a list, this is what the product is, and they learn what the order and exactness is, you know. And first couple of times they'll do it in the frustration, but later they'll go back and they'll think it through and they'll make their plan. So we kind of work with them on how to make a plan, what do you think's going to happen, but then it becomes intuitive. And again, so that they're not so dependent on me setting the standards. So I'm not setting the standards, I'm not setting the grade, I'm not conducting them through a path. They have to move forward because they're going to have, there's nothing you can put in. We always say, whose responsibility is to learn this? It's my responsibility, you know. So I can't teach them anything they don't want to learn. I can't force them because we do mastery level education. You know that, you know, it's either accept or do it again, and that's pretty much it because we don't have, you know, we don't enjoy grades, multi-grades, you know, either you did it or you didn't.
Right.
And so just kind of getting them cultivated and, yeah, I made a mistake and, oh, yeah, that's a good lesson rather than, oh, it's the end of the world. So kind of getting those behaviors. But so I know it's industriousness, and we kind of do that, coordinate it to things like, oh, how much longer, how much do I have to do? So those language, and you don't hear it too much. It takes about a year to get that kind of smoothed out. But so a lot of behaviors that we normally hear, we use those as language, but each one is different. I could have two kids working on industriousness, but their issue with it is different. So we really pick the goal based, so it's very highly individualized, that this is where, because their temperament, so we do it when they come in, we do what we call a path assessment. It's a personality approach to learning, their temperament, their habits, and like an enneagram. And so some of that is DNA, some of it's learned, birth orders and all that, but to really know who that child is, and you can kind of, so anybody, even when we do Try-Me days, we have them take a personality test. It's Briggs-Meyer, and it's pretty simple, and we don't use those labels with the children because they're too little to label. Right. But I want to know the kid that's quiet, that he's quiet because he's introspective thinker as opposed to the one who's afraid. Or I want to also know who's the one that's going to come out and take that saw or whatever and go whipping around because, you know, they're just vibrant and into it. So if we can kind of have an idea before they come onto the property, right. Each child has their own experience. People think it's a vocational school because they see all the equipment, and they're like, oh, that's vocational. And actually, Sloyd, when it came over and was introduced, it was actually introduced by a woman to the U.S. It comes from the Danes and the Finland and over, so you can track it down a couple different ways. So when it first came, it was about the child. So when you look at things like Montessori or Waldorf, which are very child-focused, Sloyd was very child-focused. But it was right in our industrial era, and so from that 1860s to 1910 is when it was introduced, and it got flipped. That's what our vocational, the public schools vocational system, was an adaptation of Sloyd, but it was to create a worker. And our thing is, what if they don't work in that profession? What if they don't, you know? Right. So we switched it here. So as far as credit, yeah, you know, being real, they've got to be able to work in both worlds. This is really nice. So like I said, the math and the reading, it's we use direct instruction, SRA, so it's, again, either you get it or you don't, and we don't move on until you get it. The 16, like we have a 16-year-old out here now, who's kind of in that, I'm done with school, and really, really smart. He's the one who's worked on the printer. We flip him over to things like Alex, which is a math program. He worked through, just after working with him, getting temperaments and what he did like and didn't like, and really struggled with math and was having a terrible time, had a terrible time in the algebra. And that when we talked to him, like, he's totally right brain, he's artistic, really creative, but because he's on that one track, we went and put him in a college statistics track to Alex, and he tested out of the course. So he's already got this college credit.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
Yeah, so we go through, again, after working through the Navy, so we do a lot of that educational development. So the resources with using things like Sailor, which Bill Gates had put out, Alex, there's courses in philosophies that are geared to, again, that 18-year-old that you can kind of work with them. So the goal is, instead of starting back and what do we do next, the goal is, this is where you need to be so that you can have the choice. Whether you go to college or not, we set you up to make sure that you can. So usually when they finish, they have 12 to 18 college credits. And we do them in different sets. We do, again, that there's so many ways to get it, that you can do an online course. You can do a paper correspondence course. We do a portfolio course with them. We do a hybrid course with them. And we do a straight online, because it's important for them to learn, even when I get online, how do you at 18 introduce yourself in a discussion board with somebody who's 40 years old who's been doing this for years. Do you know? So how do you handle yourself? You don't have that experience. How do you own that and then move forward? So we start with that goal, so that college is the choice. And if you choose to go down another path, we don't want you to shut the door because there's only one way in. You didn't get the right SAT score. You're test phobic, you're tired of reading, you're tired of the work, but there's so many other ways to access college. And especially now, there's so much choice. But that's what, again, through the military, they do it all the time with, their active duty. And we've just kind of adapted it here. So the goal, where do you need to go to be able to have those choices? And then we work backwards to make sure they can hit them with the right markers. And that it's a third party validation that, nope, you got your English, you got your math, you got a philosophy, and you got a history, and those are the goals, and then you can move on.
Wow. So do you offer any courses outside of that program?
Yes, we offer the same. We do have classes, just like we'll do a 5-day-week workshop and some of those are during the day. So then our current population has new kids involved. So again, because it's a small microschool, one of the things people are like, well, the school's so small. And the max that we'll ever have is 24, just because of the nature of the work and just the nuance of it needs to be tight. But we want our kids to have a lot of exposure to a lot of different things. So we had like a toolbox workshop, and we had a boat building workshop in the spring semester. So we had a whole new group of like 6 kids, because those classes are small too, so it's kind of fitted. But now my core group has 6 new people that they need to learn to interact, who don't have that experience. And how do you help them? And how do you bring them along? Not how do you, I got it, and you don't know, that your job, that's that, back to the 12 habits, that grace and courtesy. When somebody's in there, we help them, and work through those issues. So we have those. We do after school programs. So we'll do another one, and that's why somebody's here all the time until 3:30 to 5:30. So we'll do another class starting from 3:30 to 5:30. So they'll do workshops. And then we also offer outside, we work with another veterans group, so we do adult classes as well.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So then we'll have different, and a lot of times the courses, we'll set them up, but usually it's a group or an individual who's like, hey, I really want to try this. And they'll talk to us. I'll see what I can work out with the instructors in the space. And then everything's really highly individualized. It's like, if you're going to take that time is precious. Make sure you take that time, that you're going to get the experience you want. And again, not just even the materials, but the community, and that time to kind of, again, slow down a little bit and kind of enjoy the process of what you're doing, instead of always trying to get to a point. Because we all know, and we hear it from kids, if I get here, it's just going to be more. Well, that's kind of life, So how do we say, oh, well, this is great for today, and tomorrow's something new.
Right. Move on. So is that how new kids can get started? Is they come to one of those?
They can come to one of the workshops, and we also do Try Me Days in the fall. And we'll do, they're like half days that they can come in, and they'll have multiple activities that they can just go through and get their hands wet and try print. They'll do a little bit of printing, a little bit of woodworking. They'll go spend time with the goats. They do goat herding, and some of the art and outside. Yeah.
So how does one find out more information?
If you go to our website at www.sloydcroft.com, you can go on there. There's information. You can send, there's the phone number. You can text. We love text. And you can also request a visit. And I really encourage people to request a visit and come out. It's really difficult in a short time, because summer camp, for example, everybody's like, well, what's going on this week? And again, it's so dynamic and fluid based on the kids and who's here, that it'll change. We know we're always going to be doing something artistic. We're going to do wood. We're going to be outside. Again, we partner with Paradise Canyon, so we're over there twice a week. We partner with All Saints Anglican. We're up there for a morning a week. And then we have about 3 or 4 other artists that run businesses throughout San Antonio, who we have ongoing relationship. Instead of one and done, we go back multiple times, and the kids build relationships to see that, yes, with these are, again, innovators who kind of took their passion and kind of ran with it.
Okay. How many spots do you have open?
Right now, we have, going into the fall, this year we will only go up to 16. Next year we'll go up to 20.
Okay.
So this year I have 4 more spots.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just come out and visit. And like I said, the kids love to show what they did. So, you know, if you just want to come and see what they did. And
Right.
but yeah, it's kind of different to watch. And so it's been really great. I have awesome families who've really kind of developed their own community. And probably the biggest thing, and we really count the family as our client, not the student. Our goal isn't to mold that child, or not the parent. It really is, how do we protect that family unit? So one of the things families love is there's no homework. That's why we have the extended school year. If I can't get it done in 8 hours with one-on-one, and that's why our staffing is the way it is and the low ratios, but we really want to preserve parents' evenings and weekends. Everything's one price, all included for the school. So you're not going to want to run out to Walmart because you need something. You're not chasing Lunchables because they do their meals here.
Right.
But it's kind of to get that family to be able to slow down a little bit and be together,
Right.
and not have school as my driver pulling me through. That it's kind of a family experience, because it's so precious time, such a short time with our children.
Right.
That we just, to run off in all our directions, to have them have their own job, we really kind of want to preserve that family.